What is going on, everybody? And in this video, we are looking at state of the market and stock picks for May 5th, 2022. So if that sounds like something you're interested in, consider subscribing, as I do provide daily and weekly updates to get you prepared for the day and the week ahead. Now, the big historic day happened today. We came in looking at Powell and how he was going to approach rate raises. Now, there was a lot of concern that if they came in at 75-point basis move, that was way overdone. Fed being extremely hawkish, that would essentially probably sink the market. The biggest thing is technical wise. I talked about that 20 EMA monthly. Somehow we escaped with the skin on our teeth barely yesterday. We had pulled just back within to allow us, or the other day, I should say Monday, we came back in, barely holding that support. And then coming into today, there was a lot of concern again about the 75-point basis move, about bond purchasing, what was going on with that. Again, there's always big opinions out there. There's always worst case scenario, I think, is what the market's kind of been looking at. That's why you get these big moves to the downside coming into these meetings, and then you get what actually happens. So Powell came out today. Report came out, 50 basis point move. Now, that hasn't been done in a very long time, and normally that's pretty bad, 50-point basis move. But considering where we've just come from, it wasn't bad because people were expecting a 70-point basis move. So when expectations are really high, anything below that, the market is taken as a positive sign. So the market started, I'll be honest, at 2 o'clock. The numbers that came out, I think they were good. I thought the numbers were bullish in my mind. I put out a couple tweets essentially stating that just before Powell came in. And then Powell came in and the market just tanked. But it played range. It played that tight range. It played a big range on the index. Matter of fact, again, this is a historical moment. So the stock market was jumping essentially on every word that Powell was stating. Even though he had a pre-written statement he went over before he actually started fielding questions. But nonetheless, in my mind, the bond buying is going to start tapering in June. So that is a bullish sign as well. It means it's still there. It means it's not completely going away. It's going to slowly go away, which is something I talked about. As long as it's not 100% just gone. I think that the tapering aspect that Powell came in with was a very smart move because it helps the market gradually get back to where it needs to be. And I think that's what's important. Again, now you're simply talking about the stock market here. So it has nothing to do with the economy. Powell even said that inflation was getting out of hand. Fed are finally admitting that, even though he did comment that he is seeing that it could be transitory, but then he kind of quickly stopped himself from saying that and said, well, we have to see. So nonetheless, he thinks inflation numbers will come down. He thinks that we could have possibly peaked, but there's no way of knowing. Again, there's no way of obviously knowing till you look back and reflect on things, kind of get key indicators to kind of tell you if that's what it was. But ultimately, short term, we are in a bearish. I think that everything obviously very bullish setup here. One thing we need to do though coming into tomorrow is we need to break essentially open up above that 4,300 mark tomorrow. If we can do that, tomorrow will be an extremely bullish day in my mind, and we could get a parabolic move like we had just seen coming out of the last FOMC meeting. Again, just the way things have come across, expectations were so high that even though a 50-point basis move is ridiculously high, we have to understand that in itself provides us guidance for the market and allows us to continue to start growth to run. And that's what's ultimately drives the market is growth stocks. Now, values have been kind of parabolic as well, but I think this sentiment will bring in a massive parabolic move. We'll get back into earnings mode. So the biggest things I can tell you going into tomorrow that I'll be watching are all those companies that did well in earnings, your Teslas, your AMDs, your Facebooks. Even though the numbers and stuff weren't great, it's still running. And there's Apple. There's a bunch of other ones that are going to start running. We also got shop earnings first thing in the morning too, so that'd be one to watch. But all these companies will start ripping, I think, tomorrow. As long as you're going to hold above that, everything is at a key support or key resistance level. Like I showed here, most stocks are look exactly like this, just sitting right below a key level. Yeah, there's a lot of resistance, but I can guarantee you, if we can hold above this and wake up in tomorrow, if we don't gap up, but if we can hold flat or just above this, I think we can start really running and get parabolic again after this meeting. And I think it could run for a couple weeks and possibly even all-time high. I mean, the news was actually a more positive sentiment, a bullish sentiment in my mind, to continue up. Again, I didn't see the market really crashing. It held that level magically on Monday. It pulled out some sort of magic in that of the hat to get above that level yesterday or on Monday, and then now we are we're ripping back up. So again, we're going to get in full earnings mode, even though big earnings have already essentially finished up. There's still tons of other earnings. But you have to also understand that we didn't run. Like, we were getting prepared for the Fed, and so they sold off. Your Tesla, fantastic earnings, sold off. Amazon, fantastic earnings, sold off because we were waiting for the Fed. Now that we got information, these things are going to go parabolic tomorrow. So being said, again, if we can break above that, then I think we can get a pretty clean, we're going to get a clean shot up to the 43.83. Then up to, I think ultimately, to be honest, there's a lot of resistance levels here. You got another one at 44.62, but I think ultimately we're going back to 4,500 very easily. At least in this parabolic run, we could even go even further, especially with good earnings from Tesla and Apple. I think they can really carry it. Normally, at least two big techs and a solid value stock. Banks is one big thing. Is the banks look great. The banks need to break. If the banks can break above 2, which they're holding above right now, that would just give more steam to the index. And then I think everything, once those big leaders can start pulling, the rest of everybody else follows. And so watching those tomorrow. And Bitcoin, like I was stating before, it held really well. Now you have this wedge break. Now you're going to get a parabolic move. Let's see if we can get Bitcoin back up to 52, I think is what I'm looking at there very easily with what's going on. Again, with inflation and everything, this Bitcoin is going to run, I think, parallel with the market. And then, again, I think we'll continue to run since our cycle, this whole year cycle has been completely off. Again, that's something you have to understand is, the typical cycle that we had is come like 2 months early. So, that's sell and go away in May, I think is something that's going to be delayed because we haven't really pushed. We've had like 2 parabolic moves for the year, and that was pretty much it. And then the rest of the time we've been waiting to decipher what the Fed is doing. But the Fed, I think, is approaching it in the right fashion, and the market's liking it so far. Give it overnight digestion, and I think everything will start really ripping. So I do like Bitcoin. Again, I'm thinking when it starts topping out, and if it does decide to come back down, you'll be looking at a 52K is kind of what I'm looking at, and then might get a move back down at 46, and then continue up and break out of this wedge is what I'm kind of looking at. Again, going in tomorrow, biggest key ones I'm watching is Tesla. As you can see, you're breaking trend here. Really want it above, if we can get it above that 960, which means we would have to probably gap up. We're going to have to gap up a little bit, which it looks like it's holding right now. So if we end up 160 tomorrow, as long as we can hold that level, this thing will go parabolic, and I think we'll hit 1K and then possibly even past that. Again, crushed earnings, so I definitely want to watch where this goes into tomorrow. And you got the 20 EMA weekly at the 942. So as long as we hold above that tomorrow, I see that as being very bullish going into tomorrow. So that's one of my primary ones I'm watching tomorrow. Apple is a huge one as well. They crushed earnings. They're kind of sitting at support right now. But as long as it can hold essentially the 165 is kind of what I'm looking at. You might get a touchback. A lot of these are right into support. And when you're looking at the daily, and this is one thing that might be you would kind of like a pullback on this, but considering the way everything's played out, your pullback might be minute because of the news and the environment, the way economy and everything is. You might get a brief pullback tomorrow, and these things are really going to jet. And I think Apple could possibly get to 175 on this pair. I'm not saying it's going to get in a day. I think this parabolic move can get it back up to 175. I think it's going to be a multi-day run after news like this. And then again, we could possibly even test the 176. And then you have to realize that I think a lot of big tech, because a lot of forward guidance isn't the greatest, I think they're going to essentially fade out after that, and then it's going to start moving in mid caps, small caps, and a lot of growth. I think growth and value will run out just as well with growth, especially the companies that have done well. So that's something I'm also keeping an eye on. Now I want to watching for the breakout here of 502. I think if we can open up above this tomorrow, you can get another run to 528. So I want to watch now tomorrow. I think it'd be a good one as well. Shop, I think, could be a huge one. Again, depending on how they do on earnings, it's been beaten down so bad. There's no real reason why it was selling off. It just continued to sell off since January to some extremely low levels. So if they do good and they open up above the 525, yes, I'm saying above the 525. I'm saying if they crush it, with the new settlement with the Fed and everything, if it gets above 525 tomorrow, this thing's going to jet. I wouldn't actually be surprised if this thing, it'll scream back up to 700, I think, and possibly even beyond that. I wouldn't get high expectations, but it definitely, if it does good on earnings, I think this thing will start screaming up. All the news is aligned for a shop tomorrow. So if it does crush earnings, this one will be another primary to be watching, because I think it can start really screaming up tomorrow. There is a lot of really good plays possibly tomorrow. Those are the ones I'm kind of really focusing on. Airbnb could be another huge good one tomorrow, especially if we gap up. If we get above the 161 mark tomorrow, we can get another nice rip up to essentially the 175. I think this would be good for Airbnb. Again, a lot of these have already retested. So the second attempt, I think if you can gap up, especially with the news, I think we can start really, again, getting parabolic in some of these. So watching those ones in particular. But that's pretty much it. I don't want to give too many. I think there was already a lot there. I think, again, those are they have been the safe havens, and so they will make their parabolic run tomorrow. And then coming into Friday, you might get a little rotation into some of the other ones, possibly your Googles and stuff. Google is a wedge breakout as well, kind of looking at that 2392 mark. If there's some kind of pullback, everything looks the same. So you're having all these massive wedge breaks, which is perfectly aligns with the Fed. So we might get a little bit of a touchback overnight or in the morning and then start running. But that's ultimately what I'm looking for. Could even play the index. Like I said, I think everything is going to start getting parabolic as long as we can break above the 4311. Could get a nice run up to at least the 4400. And then, like I said, I think we're ultimately going to end up finishing at the 4500. And again, depending on how much gas we get, we could start really making some massive tears up on this one, possibly even all-time highs because we didn't make it in that last rip. But we have to see. Not guaranteeing any all-time highs. I think just the way the market sentiment is right now, I think we could possibly run to all-time highs, but just because now we got a lot of clarification, people are getting used to what the Fed is doing. The Fed isn't coming at it too crazy. I think they're doing at a right pace, just considering the circumstances. The numbers and everything are absolutely absurd. Haven't seen in history or in a long time. And then just the way things are, the market's just anything better than whatever the expectation is. expectations, were high for inflation and rates, and they came in under that. So again, I think that's really going to make us start ripping into tomorrow. But if you made it this far, go ahead and drop a like button. And then until next time, I'll see you guys later.